Hello, I'm Melissa Blosser, your Public Information Officer for Douglas County. And today on Inside Douglas County, we are here with Phil Ritger, the Genoa Town Manager, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Candy Dance. You're just a little bit busy out there, right, Phil?
We are.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming in and talking to us and taking that time.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting us here.
Yeah, so why don't you just take a few minutes to tell me a little bit about the Candy Dance and why it's important to the town of Genoa.
Okay. Well, the Genoa Candy Dance is one of the major funding sources. I think to understand sort of the importance of the Candy Dance, you have to understand the town's budget and resources and how we operate. Unlike the other entities within Douglas County, Genoa's property tax revenue is roughly 8% of our entire budget. Sales and use tax is about 2%.
Right.
So if you haven't done the math, that's 10%. So what Candy Dance means to the town is it represents 52% of our budget. So Candy Dance represents 52% of the budget. The Genoa Cowboy Festival, a newer event, generates another 20%. So really without those two festivals or two events, the town would really not have an operating budget to speak of, essentially, because with the small tax base we have, those two events become very critical to it. So that's really the importance of it. And the Candy Dance, as everyone knows, or should know at least, is it's always the last full weekend in September. This year that is coming up here on September 26th and 27th. And the Arts and Crafts Fair runs from 9 to 5 each day. And on Saturday evening is the historic and traditional dinner dance, which is really what goes back into the history of the event in town. So that's on Sunday or Saturday evening. Starts at 4:30 and goes till around 10.
Great. Sounds like fun.
It is.
Okay, so this event is really historical. So you just touched on that briefly.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell me a little bit more, or dive into that a little bit more about the brief history?
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, without getting into too
Right.
much. Right. So we're branding the Genoa Candy Dance now as established or since 1919. So the event started in 1919 as a fundraiser for the town, and the fundraiser was put on by several women in town to what they wanted to do is raise funds for streetlights. So the concept was to have a dinner and a dance, and the candy was sort of an enticement to bring couples out. So they made some homemade candy, which was kind of passed out and handed out during the dance itself, and then the evening culminated with a dinner at the old Raycraft Hotel, and the Raycraft Dance Hall is where the dance itself was. The Raycraft Dance Hall is actually the town hall. It's still the existing structure down there. So the old hotel had burned down in the fire in 1910, or post that. Anyway, so that's sort of the purpose of it. So that first year when they did the Candy Dance, it was to, as I said, generate funds to purchase streetlights. They wanted to electrify the town, which they did. They were successful, raised enough money, and installed 3 streetlights, only to find out the next year that they had to pay the electric bill. And hence the tradition of the Candy Dance was born.
Gotcha.
Out of necessity to pay electricity bills. So, and if you're in town, actually somewhere in the history they installed, I think, around 12 of the historic streetlights that go back in that time. 9 of those are still operating and functioning in town.
Oh, wow.
So there's 9 existing of the old 1919 vintage streetlights.
Cool.
So.
Nice. Okay. Well, I have been out there actually, and the vendors that you guys have out there are remarkable. It's just amazing, the variety and all the different things that you guys have out there. So give me a little visual as a spectator, and maybe this is your first time at the Candy Dance. What do you see as you kind of walk in and come down into the sea of vendors?
Well, the sea of humanity and the sea of vendors as well. So if it's your first time coming into the Candy Dance, what you're going to notice is that a town of 300 becomes a town of about 20,000 people.
Yeah.
Within the downtown district there. We have around, in total, there's probably 270 to 280 arts and crafts vendors, another 30 food vendors. So there's plenty of food, libations, and stuff to keep people hydrated throughout the day and energized, and then the arts and crafts vendors themselves. And it ranges anywhere from fine art, paintings and photography, to quilting, to basket weaving, to dog treats. And now we've actually have a category, have had for the last few years, of craft food vendors. So you get people doing the soup mixes and the pastas and other types of craft foods. So so it really a wide variety. And I know a lot of people use this as their traditional lead into the Christmas holiday shopping season. So,
I'm guilty.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, you're going to find there's something there for everyone's taste, really, within that venue. About 180 of the vendors are in the Mormon Station State Park, so that's the highest concentration. And then there are vendors out at the Orchard House to the south of town, coming back in towards the Trimmer Outpost and the Trimmer Field across from the town offices, and then along the streets in town itself. So that kind of culminates it. The town park had been used at one time for vendors, but it is now where we host the dinner dance in the evening.
Okay. I bring a wagon out there. Because there is a long jaunt back to the parking lot, so I have a wagon that I carry in and just stuff it all in. Otherwise, I'm walking back and putting it back in and walking back. So it really is. There is that much there.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll tell you, there is a long walk, but we do have 3 parking areas. One out of the cemetery on the north end of town. If you came in from Jacks Valley, if you come in from Foothill Road, there's a parking lot just south of the post office, and then there is the main parking lot on Genoa Lane as you come in.
Right.
All 3 of those parking lots are serviced by shuttles. So there's shuttles that bring you from there into town. And for large purchases, you can actually stop at the information booth in town and make arrangements for us to transport large purchases out to your vehicles.
Good to know.
So.
Good to know. Okay, so you have some amazing volunteers out there. I mean, a lot of this is, I would say, besides yourself and your staff, is driven by the volunteers. So you want to take a little time and just talk about those volunteers? I mean, there's probably a lot, but just touch over it.
Yeah, and it's hard to, clearly I can't name all the volunteers or walk through everything, but this event, I mean, the town staff is really 2 people.
Right.
And to put on an event of this size clearly would not happen without the volunteers. First and foremost is, I'll name some of the chairs. Dee Dykes is in charge of the candy and the candy making, and that's a huge task. They start in the first week in August and are continuing to produce candy up to next week, essentially. They'll be packing stuff next week. So and she's got an entire crew of people that she coordinates and brings in to do that. They'll produce this year a little over, well, I think they've increased their numbers, so they're going for in excess of 3,000 pounds of candy this year.
Oh my goodness, right?
Up from last year. So.
and you even brought me some.
I even brought you some. Yes.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And you can pre-order that candy too, right?
You can. They do take some pre-orders, but it is available for the most part, starting bright and early Saturday morning. And if you want it, get there early, because by Sunday morning it's pretty well sold out.
Yeah, I waited in that line, so it is worth it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's extremely. So that's there's a major task there with the number of volunteers who help with that. Second on the list, Andrea Anderson is headed up the dinner dance committee and has done a fabulous job. She did that last year for the first time. This is her second year with that. So she takes care of coordinating the entertainment, the caterer, the setup, and everything associated with the dinner and the dance itself on Saturday evening, and her crew that comes in and helps with her. And then the other major category of where we got volunteers and assistants is with the vendor hosts. So we have dedicated volunteers who are there throughout the entire weekend, making sure the vendors are taken care of, and that if they have any needs or any concerns, that can be addressed, because obviously just myself and some paid staff I have during the event can't
No.
manage 300
Yeah.
people, 300 different vendors, and the issues that can arise.
Their needs,
So,
yes.
yeah. So that's really critical. Other people, so we've got actually the vendor hosts and Roger and Allison Gray have taken over the entire task of coordinating all the volunteers. So really, without the two of them, just all of the volunteers that are needed for each of the various positions and areas within the function wouldn't happen. So I really have to thank them a lot for their efforts.
Gotcha. I'd imagine too your setup and cleanup and all the organizations, and then you got public safety, although some of them may not be volunteers, but it's just got to be a huge amount of people that come out really and help and support this event, and it's just amazing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they say that Burning Man is what, the third largest town or city in
Like
Nevada, essentially, when it runs. So I think Genoa must be about the fourth largest city in Nevada during the Candy Dance.
Well, that brings up another good question. How many people per day do you guys kind of average? I know I see a different number, but depending on the weather, probably too.
Depends on the weather, but based on, and we get pretty good estimate based on our parking lots and the parking attendants and things like that. It ranges anywhere from, I would say on the low side, like 15,000 people a day, to easily 20. I mean, I think on average it's about 20,000 people per day. So we're talking 40 up to as much as 50,000 people in one weekend.
Oh my gosh, wow. And that's great for the businesses out there too. You know, all the regulars that are out there, you guys, people have a chance and an opportunity to go in and visit them, and they probably reap the benefits from that as well. So.
Well, the businesses locally in Genoa, but also in the valley. I mean, the various inns and hotels, the RV parks, I know are all sold out well in advance of this event.
Right. This is no joke.
Yeah, this is an important event, not just for Genoa, but for the entire valley.
Absolutely. So did I miss anything about the candy? Did you want to talk about it a little bit more? Did you know that I know there's so many varieties of candy, and I've actually visited out there a couple times when they were making the candy and taking their pictures, and your volunteers out there that make the candy are just so excited, and some of them have been doing it for years, and this is and they kind of have this little camaraderie with each other, and it's just really a neat thing to go out there and watch, and the candy is amazingly delicious. So if you don't get it, you're missing out.
Right. Well, it is amazing. Candy. Like I said, that's really the history. The history of this event, while the craft fair and arts and crafts fair is what most people show up for, the dinner, dance, and then the candy are really the historical aspects of this entire event. Yeah, I mean, just in general, 3,000 pounds of chocolate, you're going through 1,000 pounds of chocolate, a couple thousand pounds of sugar. What was it? I figured out they Divinity alone. There's a dedicated crew who makes Divinity, which is not an easy task.
Right.
And I think they go through about 40 pounds of egg whites in producing that fancy. So yeah, it's an amazing group out there.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult for me. It's a difficult job for me to have to sit in the office during fudge production,
smelling all that
toffee
candy.
Yeah,
that would be tough. So you guys just received that new Wi-Fi out there in Genoa. So you want to tell me a little bit about how that's important? I mean, I know it's important to the Candy Dance, but it's also important to the town of Genoa overall.
Yeah, it's well, it is. So there's no confusion. The quote free Wi-Fi system. It's a mesh network we've got installed in the downtown area, and it's really to help with tourism and to drive our ability to communicate and promote tourism throughout the valley as well as in the town itself for visitors that are there. Genoa is up against where we are, sitting up against the mountains. We have limited cell service.
Yeah.
It's so between AT&T and Verizon, we have limited signals or fairly weak signals. So especially during a thing like Candy Dance, when we get that many people in, especially in today's world with all the mobile devices and stuff, it has become very difficult for vendors in modern times to transact business. So the Wi-Fi system out there this year, it's a pilot this year, obviously, it's the first time it's been installed. but it will hopefully drive commerce for those vendors.
Right.
So during Candy Dance, and also we'll do it during the Cowboy Festival, it'll actually be, there'll only be a secure side to it, so it won't be open to the general public. We'll dedicate that to the vendors. But then once the event is done, we open back up the public side, and so tourists and everyone else can use that when they're in town.
Great.
You know, a tie-in with the Carson Valley Visitors Authority. They've got their QR code mobile map and system. So again, it's a nice thing that someone can be in Genoa, click onto their map, and know where the destinations are and where to go,
Great.
and what to see in the valley as well as when they're in the town itself.
Absolutely. It was exciting for you guys. Glad to see that happen.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else you kind of want to touch over? Anything new this year? Anything different? Anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't glazed over? Just encourage people to come out and have a good time, eat some of this great candy, eat some
Yeah,
good food,
yeah.
shop to your heart's desire.
Right. No. Anything new? Now, you know what? It's a pretty well-oiled machine that's been running the way it is.
Yeah.
What's new this year? If there's anything on the candy sales side, the Divinity group last year tested out and that's what these are actually. They're chocolate-covered Divinity.
Oh,
so
wow.
they're Divinity dipped in dark chocolate. They did that sort of as a limited sampling thing last year. It was a big hit, so this year they're actually producing it for sale. So that's a new addition to the lineup of candy. Otherwise, we've got our traditional fudge with and without nuts, the peanut brittle. Let's see, there's a Rocky Road. There's peanut butter cups, and homemade peanut butter cups, which are unbelievable and very time-consuming to make. That's a very dedicated crew. But yeah, there's a whole variety of stuff, and it's a great event from that standpoint.
Well, I'm sure the town appreciates everything you do and your staff as well, and I know you guys put in a lot of hours, so thank you for spearheading and staying with it. So,
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here again, and I'm Melissa Blosser with Inside Douglas County, signing off.